You have to truly believe in the magic.
What's up, Magic fans, and welcome to this week's episode of Penny for Your Thoughts, the Orlando Magic UK podcast. Today is Thursday, the 16th of February, 2023. My name's Mikey, I'm your host this week. Today's episode, we're going to be discussing Orlando's chances of making the play-in tournament. Now we've reached All-Star Weekend. We're going to talk about the signing of Goga Bitadze and why this will be the first of many appearances for Paolo and Franz at All-Star Weekend. But before we jump into all of that, let's get into introducing my hosts for the week. Paul, good evening, mate. How are you?
Oh, good, mate. How's things?
I'm doing well, mate. I'm doing well. It was good to catch up with you at the weekend. We had
it was nice, mate.
Together.
Short visit, but very nice to see you up here, matey. I know Lily's been ill, so it was a shortened visit, wasn't it?
It was, but it was a good time.
Enjoyed it.
Gary, the best looking boy in Sunderland. How are you doing, mate?
Not bad, mate. Just had a gym session before I came on here, hence the baseball cap, because I caught the side of my hair and I thought it looks like a poodle's bum.
I thought you were going to say, hence the guns are out. You've had a gym session.
In the gym, it's allowed. I had to just sling basically this on.
Was it arm day?
It wasn't. It was shoulders.
Oh, that makes even more sense.
Mate. Every so often he's going to sit there and go, give him a quick kiss.
I'm not in a nightclub, Paul, so I won't do that. That's after 6 pints.
And talking of 6 pints, you right, G? How are you, mate?
6 and the rest, mate.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, that's just the Tuesday.
Just the warm-up.
Yeah, mate. Yeah, I'm good, thank you, mate. Cardiff actually won for the first time in 12 games on Tuesday, so we might not go down to League One. Might be staying with Gary's lot in the Championship.
We're going up.
You go up, mate. Yeah. You go up and join the big boys.
The way things are going, G, I'll be coming across for a visit.
True.
See Leeds play.
Hey, Paul, you didn't mention your story with the dog.
Oh, God, really? Yeah.
I forgot about that.
We were creased reading it, so you've got to mention it. Mate.
Okay. So earlier in the week, I messaged the guys with a little message that started, "Why is it always me?" So wife and I out in the woods taking our dog for a walk, and there's a bloke we see regularly, and his dog comes running up to me for some fuss. It sits down on my left foot, looking up all adoringly as I'm stroking its chest and there's fussing its head. After a few moments, up it gets, runs off all happy it's had its attention. I look down and I have a 2-inch streak of dog muck running down my left trouser leg. I think the phrase that I uttered began with an O. 4 and then another word or two. Could not believe it. So I had to walk around with dog muck. And we were literally inside the first mile of the walk, 5 mile walk it was. And I have the rest of the distance with a streak of bright orange dog muck down my leg.
I'm not sure whether that was worse or better than what I expected, because when your notification popped up on my phone and it started with "I always me," I was thinking he's hurt himself somewhere. He's tripped over in the woods and twisted his ankle again, or honestly, knocked himself out on a tree branch.
But I think I would have rather been limping round or something than looking down and thinking, I've got to go stripe a dog crap down my leg, for God's sake. I'm just a right tramp.
Paul, if it makes you feel any better, I know I'm in the northeast, but that's just a standard date in Newcastle, to be honest.
Gary's got his Newcastle joke in there somewhere, hasn't he?
What? It's not a joke, Mikey. It's a fact.
Hey,
I've never been that north, so I can't really say anything. But there we go.
Don't bother.
No, I won't. Anyway, on from dog muck, on to Magic news. So, as of today, the Orlando Magic are 24 and 35, currently sat in 13th in the Eastern Conference with 23 games remaining. The Magic are 4 games back of Toronto, who are sat in 9th, and Washington in 10th. They're now 2.5 games back of Chicago, and a game back of Indiana in 12th. Indiana actually beat Chicago on Wednesday night after overturning a 24-point deficit in the fourth quarter, and Chicago's bad run continues. I'm getting a little nervous now. I'm getting a little bit nervous now about that Chicago pick, because if they keep losing, they're improving their chances of getting in the top 4. But at the same time, we'll see. Gary's like, nah, don't be so silly.
I don't know whether it's actually possible for them to drop so far that they're going to be in those top odds. But let's be fair, since they flattened them out anyway, the difference if you don't make that play-in tournament, the difference in the odds is fairly negligible. It just puts it that at one point they could only get sort of from 1 through 4 or 10 onwards. But you just get some of the more middle ground as they start to drop. It doesn't really affect the top odds that much. But yes, no. Like you, Mikey, I know exactly where you're coming from.
I had a quick look at Tankathon the other day just to see what our percentages were, and I did one simulation, and we came out first. You wouldn't believe it. So at the moment, given we're playing quite well and we're chasing down the pack, we still have a 10.5% chance of the number 1 pick as it stands, and a 42% chance of the top 4. Obviously, teams who are worse off than us, they've got 14% and 12.5%. So where we're at the moment, playing well, we want to obviously kick on and get into the play-in, but all isn't lost if it does kind of fall apart a little bit.
Well, I had a look at Tankathon also. The Magic have the 18th toughest remaining schedule. Toronto had the 5th worst schedule. Washington 19th, Chicago 12th, and Indiana at 23. So, based on the schedule, Toronto could drop a few more games. We're sort of in and around Chicago and Washington, aren't we? And Indiana are in free fall themselves anyway. I think I heard earlier that they've lost 15 out of the last 17 games. And even Tyrese Halliburton coming back, they've only won, I think, 1 or 2 of those games as well.
For me, I still think Toronto are better than their record. They're one of them teams. You can never bet against them. They are a tough nut.
Hurdle's a good addition.
Superb. Yeah.
Well, don't we know about it?
Yeah.
After the other evening.
If you're a Toronto podcast, there's definitely a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles T-shirt waiting to be made, isn't there?
Him and Siakam are a good pairing. Yeah, I liked him.
Yeah, he's improved them immensely. I think he's absolutely. I'll be honest. Before that addition, I'm not that high on the Raptors, Paul. There's nothing there, but I think the purple addition bumps them up a bit again.
I just think that for me, the coached well, and he, as little as I like Nick Nurse, he gets into the mind of officials. He does a really good job of it, and I think I know that I said I don't think that Fred VanVleet was the right player for us. That's not to say I don't rate him. I think he is a very good player, and he showed it against us. He played well. You throw in Scotty Barnes, who I think is a good player. I think that Siakam is superb. I think the guy is brilliant. But then you throw in there Pirtle, and they have some good players. Yeah.
OG's the one for me.
Yeah, absolutely. I forgot to mention him. Yeah, OG, because he was out, wasn't he? But yeah, OG's another. They've got a good core.
They can cause some teams some problems if they get into the postseason, for sure. I think I had them 4th at the start of the season.
You did, mate.
And they've really underperformed, really. But somebody was going to Somebody was going to. Right, moving on then. Chuma Okeke made his return from injury this week. He featured in Tuesday's loss against the Toronto Raptors. It's good to finally see him back. But at the same time, Cole
Spoiler
Anthony's
alert, Gary,
missed the
did not
last...
finish the game.
last 4 minutes, I already know the result. It got spoiled as always. I get spoiled.
That's why I get up at 5 o'clock every time, because then nobody can spoil the game for me. Unless it's NBA League Pass, and I might not be able to watch it, but that's another story. But at the same time, Cole Anthony's missed the last 2 games with a sore wrist, and J.I., who we've seen had a small increase in his minutes, is now up to, I think, about 14, 15 minutes a game, but he sat out Tuesday's game against the Raptors as well. We're now at NBA All-Star Weekend. I know we talked about Paolo and Franz participating in Friday's Rising Stars Challenge. And Paolo was also announced this week that he's going to be in the skills competition on Saturday evening for Team Rooks alongside Jabari Smith Jr. and Jaden Ivey. Paul, I know you're not a big fan of All-Star Weekend yet, until Paolo and Franz are in that game on a Sunday, but will you be tuning in to see the Cornerstones play on Friday and Saturday?
Yeah, mate, I always watch, and don't get me wrong, it's the actual game I'm not a fan of. I've always preferred the 3-point contest, the dunk contest, and I quite like the format of the Rising Stars game that they came up with last year. Quite like that, but it's the actual main game itself. Don't get me wrong, if I got the opportunity to go, of course I'd go. But yeah, I'll be tuning in. I think it's good to see that Franz and Paolo are both there. It's great exposure for the team. It's great exposure for them. I'm pleased that Franz particularly is only in the Rising Stars because he did look tired in these last couple of games to me. I think a little bit more of a rest will help him along. I should be watching. I should be cheering the boys on. I don't know who I'm supporting yet in the Rising Stars, whether it's Paolo or Franz. But when they both get to the final, it'll be great. But they'll be there. A couple of years, they'll be both in the main game. And I'll be then all excited by it.
I expect Paolo to be there next year. If he takes a jump like Franz has made this year, we'll see. We'll see. It was also confirmed this week that the Magic have waived Patrick Beverley, who was sent over in the deal for Mo Bamba, who made his debut for the Lakers last night. I know we were talking about that quickly beforehand. Did you guys get a chance to see any action of Mo's debut last night?
I personally just had a quick look at a couple of highlights. I mean, let's be fair, there's, aside from 3 blocks, if you were looking for points highlights, you were struggling, weren't you? With 4 points. I just kind of got the feeling that the media get excited by anything LeBron does. Really? And so he passed to Mo Bamba, so they had to interview Mo about what it was like to have a pass from LeBron, and how it was to dunk on it. Really, I in my head, and I know this is I accept this is a sad boy thing, but as they were interviewing Mo and they were talking to him about what's it like to play with LeBron and this, I kind of got, you know, that scene out of Beauty and the Beast where they're in Gaston's tavern and they're singing "No One Shoots Like Gaston," and all I got in my head was nobody balls like LeBron, and nobody passes like LeBron, nobody can dunk the ball like LeBron, and I just got it all running to that tune, and that's how I feel about the media at times with LeBron. Don't get me wrong, I think he's a generational talent. The man is, you don't score them points in the NBA without that, and I'm not diminishing anything he's done. But there's just a little bit of overreaction at times, isn't there? He passed the ball to Mo Bamba, who put a dunk in. It wasn't anything super impressive. He's a big man. It's what he's supposed to do. But yeah. It was. I did find the funny thing being the Lakers fans very, very quickly going, "Why is this guy so soft?" Well, welcome to our world. We've been saying it for long enough now. I hope he does well in a poor team.
I've just had flashbacks of Gaston's Tavern and those giant cinnamon rolls.
They were good. They were good. I wasn't such a fan of the LeFou brew.
No, I wouldn't go
They
far.
were sweet. No.
If you ever get and a little FYI, if you ever get one of Gaston's cinnamon rolls, always ask for extra icing.
Has to be
always, absolutely,
always.
Gee, did you have one on holiday?
I didn't know. We didn't actually go to Gaston's Tavern.
Oh, mate, what are you?
I know.
You didn't go to Gideon's. You didn't go to Gaston's.
I know.
You failed.
I know. I did fail.
And they were on the tips I sent you, G.
They were on the tips.
They were on the tips.
You need to share the tips on the website, Paul. I think they'd be a right hit for a lot of people.
Gideon's.
You missed
Gideon's.
out on Gideon's.
Yeah, hang on, but I'm diabetic. You got to remember I'm diabetic.
No, you can balance your blood sugars. You just choose to drink beer. That's your problem.
Gee, after I'd been to Gideon's with Mikey, we were almost diabetic as well.
Yeah, we were, to be fair.
There was a lot of sugar came in, I'll tell you that, but it was worth it.
Absolutely. This week, the Magic also agreed a buyout with Terence Ross, who we all expected that to happen, and he's officially signed for the Phoenix Suns. Gary, how pleased are you with T. Ross landing in Phoenix, and what do you think about the fit there?
Firstly, I think the actual T. Ross situation, I just want to see him on a contender. That was the main thing. I wanted to see him get a shot at the ring, and I can't imagine any Magic fan having any ill will towards T. Ross. So it's like, we see certain players come back, like Aaron Gordon gets a mixed response at the minute when you see it. That's not going to happen with T. Ross. I think everybody knew it was coming, the buyout. And it was a case of you were looking at the teams and you were like, okay, the Lakers aren't very good. Which other teams do I not want to see him go to? And then I think Phoenix was a preferable landing spot as a team that nobody really has a problem with. I think he's going to go there and hopefully be a vintage T. Ross, where he's going to be a bench spark. And I'm hoping he'll get looks due to him probably sharing court time with the likes of Durant, Booker, and Chris Paul. And if he gets looks and he gets hot, he could win them a couple of games in a playoff series quite easily if they get vintage T. Ross. And it's a case of all power to him, because he sat through that rebuild with us, or that reboot, or whatever people want to call it. He sat there. He didn't cause any problems from where I was at, and he did his job. And you know what? You hear stories of their veterans and stuff causing problems when they're in that position. And the T. Ross has missed game time. He hasn't really featured for the Magic that much this season. And I guess that shows that he's not an ego trip player. So I think he'll fit in well in a good role in strengthening Phoenix's bench. So good luck to him. I hope he gets a ring.
I have to say,
well said.
Yeah, I have to say, as soon as I saw he's landed in Phoenix, I was like, there isn't really a better situation, really, other than somebody like Milwaukee or Boston. But we wouldn't want him to go to Boston anyway. But yeah, he's got as good a chance there as any, really, for me. T. Ross also posted a thank you Orlando video to his socials. Don't know if you guys had the chance to see that, which was a nice little send off from the Human Torch. And on Monday, the Magic announced the signing of Goga Bitadze, who was waived by the Indiana Pacers. He's the 18th overall pick in 2019, and he signed a 2-year deal, and I think next season is non-guaranteed. G, what did you think about Goga? Goga.
Yeah, we need to get used to his name first and foremost, don't we?
I mean, we're still trying to get Tuma's name properly, aren't we? But
I know you've got to put a pound in the swear box for earlier. You said you didn't say OKK. Don't worry. Anyway,
I'll tell you who I blame. I blame Jonathan from the Sixth Man Show, because I listen to him every episode.
Normally it's my fault.
It's normally Paul. Jonathan always screws it up, and then you get used to it. We're all used to OKK.
You do.
Okiki.
You do.
OKK.
Sticking a pound in the chum tin.
That's why you just go with Tuma.
Yeah. Absolutely.
So going back to Goga, obviously we've got roster spots. We've got a glaring need in a backup centre role, and you're not going to go and sign a Hassan Whiteside or someone who's played a bit and not really going to be in the same timeline as your franchise. So to get a guy who was drafted 18th, as you mentioned, back in 2019, he's got size. Big lump of a man. So it's just good to see we can just bring somebody in just to fill the role if we need to. I can't see him getting many minutes, if I'm being honest, especially with 24, 25 games left, whatever there is. I can see Coach Mosley shortening the rotation after the All-Star break. I'd like to see maybe the first 5 that we've got: Fultz, Harris, Wagner, Banchero, and Wendell. And then literally the bench just to consist of J.I., Cole, Suggs, and Mo Wagner. Obviously, we've got a couple of other fringe players in OKK, just to name but a few. And Caleb Houston, I think he's done an admirable job, especially when he's come in a limited minutes. I'm getting a little bit frustrated, I won't lie, with Ball. He's almost like a walking turnover. I just had a little bit of a look in his stats. He's averaging 1.8 turnovers a game, but he's only given us 0.9 assists. So not great numbers there. And I do find he's getting lost on defense. He lost his temper against Chicago. He gave a technical foul away after a goaltend. So I'm just getting a little bit frustrated with him at the moment. But I can see Coach Mosley shortening the rotation and then get Goga in on the squad. If he's wowing Coach Mosley, give him some, minutes. But I think it's just an insurance policy for now.
I think Lady Goga's a decent pickup just as a backup.
G, as Obi-Wan would say, patience, young Padawan.
Yes,
mate. He's not even. He's in his first season. I get the reaction with Bol, but the thing is, because we've been playing so well defensively, he's starting to stand out because he doesn't fit the way everybody else is playing. And then you see Jalen Suggs come on and just a wrecking ball defensively. It makes Bol look very. What's the word I'm looking for?
Like passive.
Language.
Yeah, he's just not a fit. He's just not effective on that end of the floor, is he? Really, at the moment. But give the guy time.
I know.
I think at the moment, there's an argument that somebody like Caleb Houston should be playing in front of Bol because even though Caleb's a rookie, he doesn't make many mistakes, and he doesn't. He already seems to figure out what his role is at the moment, and obviously his ability to spread the floor. He's really good defensively. I mean, we saw his steal on Pascal Siakam in that Toronto game. There's little flashes there with Caleb that he's starting to figure things out.
With Caleb, I was going to say, I think with Caleb, you're actually seeing what a rookie should do. He wasn't brilliant at the start of the season when we were over there. I know he was dropping 1 or 2 shots, but he was quite inaccurate. And I think as the season's gone on, you've seen him grow into the role that he's being asked to play, and he's becoming far, far more effective. Yeah, I agree.
Cool. And I added this to the agenda last thing, but I don't know if you guys have seen this. Apparently, Bally Sports, who the Magic are one of 16 NBA teams who broadcast the games on Bally, are going to file for bankruptcy. It was only 2 or 3 years ago that they took over from Fox Sports. And I'm guessing this is in the early stage of figuring out what's going to happen next. But any quick thoughts on anything that you might have read or seen?
I think it's been rumoured for a while that that their parent company has been having some difficulties. I think I saw something a month or so back. But you know full well that the NBA are not going to let 16 of their teams go without broadcasting. So hopefully David, Jeff, Dante will get picked up, whoever by, and we keep seeing their exceptional broadcasts.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Cool. Right, quick start again. A quick weekly recap. Well, that's a bit like when I had my interview at the Golden State game. Couldn't get my words out. So since last week's episode on Friday last week, the Magic have gone 1-2. They lost in overtime to Miami 107-103. The Magic led for most of this game. It's funny because me and Paul sat and watched this together on Sunday morning. And I think it was at half-time, Paul, early in the third quarter, and you said to me, this feels like it's going to go the way the last game went, and it was. It certainly was. In that game, Paolo finished with 16 points, Franz with 10, Wendell with 14, and Markel Fultz with 17 points. It was really Jimmy Butler finding his way to the free throw line. And now we're going to get on to a moment with Geraint.
Referant with Geraint.
Trey Maddox, Aaron Smith, and Brandon Adair with the three officials in the Heat game. Might be the worst officiated game that we've certainly seen this season. Off you go, G.
Well, they weren't on the list of bad referees, so it's...
They are now.
They are now, absolutely they are now. I don't know how you can officiate it that bad. It started well before the fourth quarter. Just ticky-tacky fouls, the whistle just going Miami's way in the whole second half, it seemed. It was almost like a respect thing because they've been there before, whereas, the Magic are some young, up-and-coming team who've got to sort of earn the right. But, I've written a couple of things down here. Eric Spoelstra, I didn't know that the coach was allowed on the floor most of the game. I mentioned this to Paul, and I think you guys, when you watched it, was asking, why is he on the court? Just walking on casually. In the game afterwards, Mo Wagner got hit with a technical for celebrating a Markel Fultz dunk against Chicago. So, where's the consistency there? And then you go down to the last 2 minutes, and that Wendell rebound. Was it Jimmy Butler that just came over the top of him? And then the last 2 minute report said that there was arm contact is marginal. Well, surely marginal means touching. So
contact is contact, isn't it?
Yeah, well, exactly. But the funny thing was, on that 2 minute report, it said about that. Was it that one? No, it wasn't. It was on the Banchero and what should have been an and one, because it said that we were disadvantaged. They should have called a foul on the Banchero jump shot with about 51 seconds to go. But the 2 minute report then went on to say that Banchero hooked him. But surely that wouldn't have happened if the officials had got the call right. So why even put it in there? It was almost like they were just putting in there just to justify, we got one wrong for Miami as well. So
I think the point you make about the technical, G, was very good as well, because when you actually think about it, Spoelstra was across and he had come into the area of play where the ball still was to call for a timeout. I understand frustration, but the ball was still live. He was in the court and they were still wrestling over that ball. It should have been a straight up tee for coming on the court. I quite agree.
I can't quite remember. This might not be accurate, but I want to say he was inside the 3-point line.
Yeah,
that would have surprised me. Yeah,
he was very, very close to being inside the 3-point line. Yeah, he was, and he just kept walking and walking and walking. It was ridiculous. It was absolutely ridiculous, the refereeing in that game, even to the point where their commentary team were saying that how can that be given a foul the other way? When we challenged, they couldn't see how it was anything other than fouls for us.
I tell you what was most disappointing about watching that, and we had the first quarter with the good guys on the call, and then League Pass just almost said, that's it. So we had to jump on the Heat broadcast for quarters 2, 3, and 4. So we never got to hear Mo Wagner on the mic, did we? The whole game.
Yeah.
Because he was comedy in the first segment.
I thought that the Heat commentary were very, very fair again. They know the stuff, and they know they talked about the Magic in glowing terms, as did the Bulls commentary team.
Yeah.
Did you have to watch that one with the bad guys calling it?
No. To be honest, I forgot to change it. I was about 5 minutes in. I thought, why not listen to these?
I would say on the Miami game, I think if we had, if our team was a year or two down the line and we had a bit more experience and or Jonathan Isaac is allowed to play more minutes than he did, because he frustrated the hell out of Bam Adebayo when he was on the court. I think if we had that, I think the referees would have been irrelevant.
Again, I think, Gary, I agree with you. Whenever we have a ref rant, there is still that factor in there that we've allowed the game to get in that position.
Like we knew what was going to happen.
They out-experienced us again, which is what Mikey was alluding to when we sat there watching it, and you could see that experience was going to come through again and beat us.
You knew with 6 minutes to go what was going to happen. It was obvious,
Yeah. So there we go.
Well, they went from one frustrating loss to one very good win against Chicago. Gary, have you got round to watching the game yet? What was your thoughts?
I've seen it. I was dancing and having fun, Mikey. Not that I've ever mentioned that before. I just thought it was, to be honest, it was really where I think the Miami game should have gone. I think really we got a performance, we got a reaction. I really enjoyed in this game, as I have recently, the play of Jalen Suggs. And I know that there's other headline grabbers. I know Markel's on a tear at the minute, which will please G and put a big smile on his face there. I'm just waiting. But there it is. It's on my screen right now. I said that and I was like waiting. I was just waiting for the ching on the teeth of G coming through. But I'm really enjoying watching the hustle of Jalen Suggs. And I think he's been an absolute tear. He's been a pleasure to watch. And really what we're seeing, I know we've seen a bit of a dip from Paolo and Franz, overall going into the All-Star break, which I think is understandable. And I'm just pleased that other players are stepping up. And I think the Chicago game was a reflection of really the depth of where the Magic are at. And it was also nice to see Wendell have another solid performance and get another win on his return to Chicago. But for me, the player I've been really enjoying watching in the last stretch of games has been Jalen Suggs. I think he's starting to look like the number 5 pick in the draft. And it's just ever so slightly coming together. And I look back, I was thinking during the Bulls game and this run where Suggs is, he's taking a 3, for example, and you're now like, okay, fair play. Or he's making a drive into towards the basket, and you can see where he's going to get something. He's going to pull up for a 2-pointer or something. And in his rookie season, that was where you were kind of cringing a little bit, and now you're kind of expecting it to go in. So I think it's a good sign going forward post All-Star break for what we're going to see from Jalen Suggs.
I agree, mate. So the Magic beat the Bulls 100-91, followed up by a loss in Toronto to the Raptors on the second night of a back-to-back, losing 113-123. Whilst we're on the subject of Jalen Suggs, G, what did you think of his performance in Toronto as one of those?
Yeah, very impressive. I was just going to pick up on what Gary just said there. I'm really enjoying the backcourt putting full court pressure on. I don't know if you guys have noticed it, and it's really hampering a couple of offenses and putting us on the front foot. And as you all know, our offense is, a lot better when the defense is all picked up and we're running. So, Suggs has been really good. Like what Gary said, showing signs of being, the 5th overall pick. He must have heard Gary when Gary said last week he wouldn't have him at the All-Star game for the for the rookie game.
I like to motivate people. What can I
You
say?
do. Keep at it, mate. Keep at
Hard
it.
love.
Have a word with Ball next. But
Improve your
no.
handle, son.
There we go. So yeah, very impressed with what Jalen's doing. He's showing a lot more confidence. He's making the right decisions. His on-ball defense is great. He's getting in and between, the tall trees, crashing the boards, getting offensive rebounds, and his just general tenacity, just playing the game is really showing through, and it's rubbing off on a lot of the team as well. So. Long may it continue. And dare I say, when do we have the conversation about who should be starting? If he's been shooting the ball so well, I know you'd probably take Gary Harris in a 3-point competition between the both of them. But what he brings on defense is just a little bit more than Gary. I know Gary's very good, but if you look into the future, Jalen's your man, probably, isn't he?
You've got to let him find it. I think you've got to let him find himself first, G.
Yeah. Oh no, absolutely. He's taking his opportunity though at the moment. So long may that continue.
I think what we're trying to get at, G, is there isn't much of a drop off now between one of them on the floor or the other.
No,
they're both being as effective as the other.
Yeah.
Gary's more of a threat from the outside, whereas Jalen brings it on the defensive end. And like I said, they both have their qualities on the other end too. Paul, last week I talked about briefly Magic making the play-in tournament, how important I thought it was to beat the teams that we're going to be competing with. And obviously we played Chicago and Toronto this week. One of the struggles that we've had is second night of back-to-backs.
Absolutely. Yep.
What would you like to see more, other than the obvious getting a few more W's on those second nights? What do you think that's coming? Why do you think they're not winning those second nights?
I personally think at the moment we see on the second night of a back-to-back we lose Jonathan Isaac for starters.
Yeah, good
I think
point.
that has a huge impact. You only have to look at the 14, 15 minutes he's on, and they are really providing important contributions. The team, you've just said that there's no drop-off when we bring the bench on, and Jonathan Isaac is an important part of that. I think equally there is, more than anything, it's an experience issue. The team, you tend to rely more and more on the bench on the second night. So you're seeing perhaps somebody like Caleb Houston getting more minutes, and he is still, as we've already said, still learning his role. He is improving hugely, but he is learning his role. So I do believe that on the second nights of back-to-backs at this moment in time, it's partly an experience thing, partly a JI management, and I think there's been more than one occasion where we've seen we've had to lose one or two other players through injury management. Mm-hmm. I think at some point we have to. I'm sure that they have had, but I'm hoping that there's a conversation as to how do we manage this better? What do we need to do better? And there has to be an honesty amongst players as to I'm not doing this well on a back-to-back, be it tiredness, be it an over-expectation of themselves as to what they can do. It's hard to know why we're not doing well on the second night of a back-to-back, but I do think there's an experience issue there more than anything else.
Do you want the good news? We've only got two more back-to-backs left.
Yeah.
It's the Lakers Clippers, I think, and then it's like the Cavs Nets, I think, in April time, sorry. So
we also do seem to, you look at the teams that we play on the second night of a back-to-back, we've had some tough ones. We've had some tough back-to-backs where, and you look at the one, I know that we've only had, that you're looking on paper that from Chicago to Toronto is only an hour's flight. However, you've had a hard game in Chicago. You've then got to travel to Toronto, and it's not a quick turnaround because you've got to go through customs. You've got all that stuff to do because you're going into a different country. So that's a tougher back-to-back than playing the Knicks and the Nets 2 nights running.
Yeah.
That has to be factored in. We also tend to, one of the ones that we've had on a regular basis is where we've played Denver or Utah on the second night of a back-to-back, and you're playing at altitude all of a sudden. Those things affect as well. And that's where I say that some of it's an experience side of things, that the players are learning what's expected of them and how they deal with things.
Yeah. But 1 and 10 for the season. But that means if we only lose Jonathan Isaac now for 2 more games, that's a positive, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
So the Magic are, like I said earlier, 24 and 35. We've already surpassed last season's win total, and I believe we only need 1 or 2 more wins, and we've already beaten Vegas's over-under that they had us at the start of the season. So going into All-Star break, quick thoughts on where the Magic are, Gary?
I'm happy. I think that the thing that really stands out to me is when David Steele was looking at it, is this anything? And the stat came up about the teams who we are now doing better than, who've had rotten starts to seasons, and it's really encouraging. First of all, that we're ahead of those teams. We're like on track to be the best of them, but more importantly, as a long-term thing, they tend to make the postseason the following year. And as a young team, it's a case of, are we in play for getting in the 9th or 10th? Yeah, I think we are in play for that. Could we likely miss it? Stats would suggest possibly, that's likely to happen. But if we're looking at a bigger picture, we've got meaningful games going to be getting played right to the end in all likelihood, and it bodes well for what's to come next season. We know now, if this team's healthy, that it's a top 8 team in the East, if everyone's healthy as it stands. So this season, we've got something to chase. Next season, we should be pretty excited going into the following season. So yeah, that's where I'm at. But I'm quite happy as a Magic fan right now.
Right, one word answer: play in, yes or no? G.
Don't go to me first. Let's go to Anand first.
Oh, I've gone to you.
Okay.
No.
I'm gonna be yes. Positive.
Gary?
Based on what I said in the preseason predictions, I said we'd just miss out. So no, but I think it'll be tight.
And I said yes in preseason, so I'm sticking with yes. Okay, right, on to the week ahead. Paul's just had to leave us, but we're just wrapping up the last few moments here. We're recording next week's episode on Friday the 24th of February. We've got NBA All-Star Weekend in Salt Lake City this weekend, starting with the Rising Stars Challenge on Friday / Saturday morning for us in the UK at 2 a.m. Saturday night includes the Skills Challenge, the 3-point contest and the dunk contest starting at 1 a.m. And then we've got the 72nd All-Star Game at 1:30 in the morning on Sunday night / Monday morning. The Magic then start their push for the play-in by hosting the 15 and 43 Detroit Pistons next Thursday, which is a midnight tip-off. One of those games the Magic definitely have to take care of business against the worst team in the East at the moment. Guys, final thoughts on All-Star Weekend and the Pistons game?
Well, the Pistons game and the Pacer game just after it are must-wins. We have to get W's there if we've got any chance of getting into the play-in, and we need to beat a couple of decent teams as well thereafter. So need the guys to get rested up and be hungry to get some W's after the All-Star break. As for the All-Star game, I'll go with Wagner's team on a Friday. I'll go with Damian Lillard for the 3-point contest and the dunk contest. Who's that guy on the Houston Rockets? Kenyon Martin Jr., is it?
Yeah.
He can throw it down. So they're my picks for the events.
Oh, it's just off the back of G there. Firstly, we've got to beat Detroit. If we have to win that game if we're serious about the play-in. I'm obviously most interested in what happens when obviously the rookie sophomore game. I think, as G said, I think Deron Williams has got a pretty good team put together for that. I don't want any injuries, but something I'm like a little subplot that I'm quite interested in, and I'm not a huge All-Star Weekend person, but have any of you actually seen the last 48 hours on Rockets Twitter with Jabari Smith, the last 48 to 72 hours?
Go on.
It isn't very complimentary about like where I've seen some. I'm not saying it's every Houston fan, but it's been quite vocal about Jabari Smith being a bit of a bust. So I don't want that to happen. I don't want that to happen. And we've been here with Jalen Suggs last season, if you remember. So I'm just really for Jabari Smith. We saw him coming in. He seems like a nice kid. There's the videos of where it's. Have you seen the thing about Oklahoma City had promised him the number 2?
I saw something about that, yeah.
Yeah, in the video where he kind of like, you can see he's like heartbreaking, where he kind of doesn't get taken number 2. So I'm guessing they thought we'd have took Chet at 1. And he's like promised number 2, and he just seems like a good kid. So I'm looking at the All-Star Weekend, and I just kind of, from a non-Magic perspective, want to see something nice from Jabari Smith, because I think he seems a pretty good kid. So yeah, there we go. That's
How
my
are you,
nice
Mikey?
deed.
While we're on the subject of the Rockets, I know there's a Magic podcast, but I had a couple of messages backwards and forwards of Houston Rockets UK yesterday, because I saw there was a graphic popped up on Twitter where they were discussing, should the Rockets trade Jalen Green? I'm thinking, what are they talking about? Like, I love Jalen Green. Like, why would you even consider that as an option? I mean, they got 3 solid young players in Sengun, Jabari Smith, and Jalen Green. Sorry. You got to build around those 3 players, and I know he come back and said, "Oh, it'd be great if they could get James Harden back." But to me, somebody like that's not the sort of player you want to put around young players who you want to figure out how to be the guys. Otherwise, what's the point? You may as well just roll the dice again in the lottery and hope that one of them sticks. But yeah, I'm the same as you, Gary. I think to write any rookie off at this stage, I mean, they're not even a full year into their rookie season. It's just ridiculous. And we've seen patience is important. We're still having to, I think there's times that we still got to remind ourselves we've got to be patient. I think it's great that we're having the conversation like the Miami game. It feels like that was one that we should have walked away with a W. It feels like the Raptors game was certainly one where if they turn the dial up a little bit on the defensive end, that would have made a difference. I think the last 3-4 weeks there's been games where Paolo and Franz have had a good game, and then the next minute they've had a game where, I don't know, they just look average, to be honest, and that's probably the best way of putting it. And when they're not playing well, when they're not being our best 2 players, is the nights when we're having our struggles. It is what it is, really. But yeah, like you guys said, that Pistons game is really important. Got to win that going into the Pacers game. And yeah, I mean, 14, 15 more wins, which is more than doable, will be right in there. Will be right in the shout for that last 1 or 2 spots in the play-in. Fingers crossed. All-Star weekend, I probably won't watch Sunday night, but I'll watch all the other ones just to see the guys do well. So yeah, anything else you guys want to add quickly before we wrap up the show?
No, I think you've covered it all, mate.
We'll resume when it matters with the Magic, and the All-Star weekend will just be as it is. No injuries, please.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Well, thank you as always for listening and watching. Make sure you hit that subscribe button if you're watching us on YouTube. The YouTube channel is Orlando Magic UK. You can shop the NBA store and Fanatics using our affiliate links in the description of the podcast. Make sure you use our affiliate code MAGICUK10 for 10% off your order. You can follow us on Facebook, Instagram and Twitter at Orlando Magic UK. So from Gary, Paul, Geraint and myself, until next week, go Magic.